So in today's lesson, we're going to continue our study of making 3D models. In the last lesson, we just went from 2D sketch to 3D model by just extruding it, but we didn't do any sort of intrusion. And because we didn't do any intrusion, we didn't do things how we would usually do them by hand, right? We didn't draw a big block and cut away. We just created a shape, which actually does make sense. You know, it's faster this way, it's more efficient, but we did need to do that rotation in order to address this. Today I'm going to show you guys how to deal with intrusions. So right now I have this cube, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a sketch on one of the faces. Now if you notice, when I select a 2D tool like line or polygon or circle, etc., as I hover over the different faces of the cube, the faces are highlighted in blue. They might be highlighted in a different color or highlighted slightly different if you're using the regular AutoCAD, the not mechanical one. I think it is still blue though. I'm not positive. So it'll highlight in blue to indicate the face you're drawing on. It's important that you're drawing on the correct face, the face that you intend to draw on. So right now I have, here's my top. This is my front view, right? So here's my front, top, and right side. So if I want to draw a circle, and I want to draw it on the front, because I want to do a hole that goes through the front to the back, I need to make sure that I'm highlighting this face. Just like when we would draw intrusions, we want to start a sketch on the correct face. We want to do the same thing when we're doing them in AutoCAD. And you know, just like before, I can utilize these midpoints. Can utilize Object Snap to help me, so I can draw this hole right in the middle. It's really not super important for this that it be right in the middle, but hey, why not do it? Okay, so I'll make this 1 inch in size, this circle. Now I need to intrude. If you go over to your 3D Basics tab, 3D Basics ribbon, you'll see that, you know, here's extrude, but we really don't have an option for intrude anywhere. All the stuff is, you know, none of it is intrude. What we need to do is use this command called press pull, which presses or pulls a bounded area. Now, something that you need to keep in mind with press pull is that it can not only intrude, it can also extrude. So you have to be careful that you're not using it to create a 3D object. I mean, you could use it to create an object, right? You could use it in place of extrude in some spots. Be a little careful with it. But here we're using it for intrusion. So I'm going to click press pull. And press pull, unlike extrude, doesn't want you to select the line of the circle because, you know, well, you can, I think, and it'll work okay, but you have to be careful because if you look closely, you'll see that the outside rectangle is highlighted in blue. And if I actually click right now, let's see, let me click, you know, let me make the mistake on purpose. If I click here, it'll pull out this bounded area or cut away this bounded area, and that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to undo that and use press pull. So when you use press pull, you want to make sure you're selecting inside of a bounded area. I'm going to select inside of the circle. Now, if I pull one way, I will be able to create an object. Let's say I type in 5. It'll actually create an extrusion. But what I want to do is I want to create an intrusion. I want to create a hole. So if I pull the other way into the direction that would, you know, subtract space from the cube, and I send this outside the cube and click, it'll create a hole that goes all the way through. Now, you don't have to go all the way through. You can make what we call a blind hole, a hole that only goes part of the way through. This is a 5 by 5 by 5 cube. So let's say I wanted to have this hole only go halfway. I'll pull it through this way and type in 2.5 and hit enter, and it'll create a hole that only goes halfway through. So that is the press pull command, which will allow you to do intrusions. So what I want to do with you guys today is I'm going to model how to do 2 of the blocks from our, you know, from the problem sets, and I'm going to ask you guys to do 2 of them for homework. So I'm going to start with block number 1. I have it because I'm using it because it has one intrusion that goes only part of the way through and one that goes all the way through. So I thought it'd be pretty interesting to work with it. So let me clear my screen. Let me get rid of this cube. Get rid of that circle too. And let me start on the top view. And I will pop back into 2D wireframe and mechanical for all my 2D features. Okay, so I'm going to start by drawing the front view, but like last time, I'm going to put it on the top. So I'm going to take a look at the height and width of this shape and draw this L shape that we have here. So the height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, which we're going to set to be 1.25. Start at 0, 0, go up 1.25 inches. Great. Now the width is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 inches. Start at 0, 0. Go over 2 inches. Okay. More time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Then this bottom section is going to come up 2 units, which is going to be 1/2 inch. And this section here will go in 2 units, which is going to be also 1/2 inch. And we'll go down 1 inch. Oops. Shoot. Yeah, that's not 1 inch. It should be 0.75 inches. That's why something seemed off here. And it'll connect here. Okay, so now I've basically made my front view, which is obviously, in the wrong place right now, but that's okay because I'm just going to extrude it and rotate it later once I've made the whole shape. So let's extrude this guy. We can go into 3D Basics to see all of my 3D tools, but you don't need to. You can still access the extrude command here. Now the problem is I used line instead of polyline, which is okay. It's not the end of the world. All I need to do is join these. So I'll hit join, select everything, and hit enter. And now we have one object. And I'll type in extrude, and I'll extrude this by the depth, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, or 1.25 inches. Okay, let's take a look at the shape we have. All right, and let's go and jump into conceptual so we can see what it looks like. Okay, it looks pretty good. Only issue is it's in the wrong perspective. So what we can actually do is we can rotate it now. So I'm going to use rotate 3D. Select the object, select my axis of rotation. So I'll select the origin and then one point along the x-axis. And then my angle of rotation will be 90 degrees. And I've already, flipped this into position. I don't need to wait till the end to do it. I can do it right now. Okay, so I have this L shape, and then I'm going to have 2 intrusions. I'm just going to put both of them on the top. So let me start with the one that goes all the way through, the one that's in this area. So to set up this intrusion, I'm going to utilize construction lines. If we look at this intrusion, along the width, it goes in 4 units, and along the depth, it goes 1.5 units from each corner. 4 units in, that's 1 inch. So I will need to create some construction lines to help me. So construction line, I'll start with one. It's here. I'm going to make sure it's on this edge here. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll offset by 1 inch the construction line in this direction. Now, unlike when we were doing isodraft stuff, the construction lines will work just fine here because we are drawing on these planes that we're working with. So we shouldn't have any issues. Construction lines again, we'll put one here and one here. And again, We'll just make sure that construction line is in the right spot. It is. All right, I'll offset by, okay, this is 1.5 units, so that's 1/4 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch, so 3/8. Offset by 3/8 from this edge and this edge. And this area that forms here, we need to intrude that. So if we try to press pull that area, let's see what happens. Does it let us select it? No, because there are construction lines. That won't work. We actually need to draw object lines in that space. So let's do it. Let's use polyline. I actually don't need to use polyline or join for press pull. Usually, sometimes it works a little bit differently. Zoom in, make sure that we're drawing in the correct space, and we're actually using these intersection points and not just drawing kind of randomly. It always helps to zoom in a little bit. Okay, and then we want to make sure this area is enclosed, because press pull only works for an enclosed area. So we drew a rectangle, not just 3 ends. We'll click here, and we'll drag through. And there's our first intrusion. You also alternatively could have used a rectangle, which probably would have been a little bit faster, but we are where we are now. Okay, now let's work on this top section and do a similar thing with our construction lines. Let's take a look. It looks like it's 1 unit in each direction. We have we have the start of this intrusion. 1 unit is 1/4 of an inch. So let's again do some construction lines. Do one here. And then another one at the other end. Offset them. Let's zoom in and make sure this one's in the right spot. Looks okay. By 1/4 of an inch. Offset each side. And let's rotate a little bit, make sure these construction lines aren't on a weird plane. Nope, they're in the right space. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll actually use the rectangle, like I mentioned before, because it is a little bit faster. Like that. And here. And if you have any trouble, it's probably because you're drawing on the wrong plane. So if you ever have an issue, just stop. Restart. I got to zoom in a little bit here. It's not snapping in place really nicely. It's trying to go to the end. So let me actually just draw lines. I think it'll be a little bit faster for me. For some reason it's trying to snap to this end, which is okay. This kind of thing can happen sometimes because there's no line going along this edge. So we'll just draw some more construction lines so we have more intersection points to work off of. So now it doesn't want to snap to that corner, of course. Okay, construction line there. Okay, and then we'll do one on the other end. This is starting to get a little choppy as it's trying to record and render these shapes. Okay, let's try rectangle again. See if it's a little bit more cooperative. Okay, and then we need to press pull. So again, I'm typing in press pull, and I'm going to select inside the bounded area of this rectangle. Now, how far does this need to go? Let's see. It goes down 1 unit, which is 1/4 of an inch. So this isn't going to be all the way through. We're not just pulling all the way through. We actually need to type in the value, 0.25 inches, and we pull through. And now we have our finished shape. We can go ahead and turn off our construction lines. You'll notice you'll have some lines left over, which is what tends to happen with press pull. If they're kind of in the way, you can delete them. If they make the shape look kind of ugly. But here it is, finished product. We can go into X-ray so we can see our intrusions really well. But that's it. So next we will work on block number 11. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now let's get started out on block number 11, which I have pictured in the bottom right corner here. Now block 11 I picked on purpose because I think it's really interesting because there are so many different approaches you could have to it. You could start with the big block and do 2 intrusions. You could start with that L shape and do an extrusion and then an intrusion. You can start with that L shape and just do 1 extrusion if you really know what you're doing. I'm going to start with the L shape and do an extrusion and then an intrusion. I'll show you what I mean. So let's get started. Let me first delete this block number 1. Go back to 2D wireframe and delete any lines that I have left here. And snap back to my top view. Rotate things around so I make sure that my view cube's in the right direction. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my my front view and extrude it. So just that L shape, starting with that L shape. So I'm going to count up the height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So the height is going to be 1.5 inches, and the width is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units. So the width is going to be 2 inches. And I'll count up the depth while I'm at it. The depth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, which is 1.25 inches. Now this L shape, it goes in 0.5 inches from each corner. So that should be enough information for me to draw this out. So let me start with those lines, but I'm going to use the polyline tool this time. I'll start at 0, 0. I'll go up 1.5 inches. Hit the space bar to repeat that last command. Go to the origin and go over by the width, which is 2 inches. Then I'm going to come up from each corner 0.5 inch. And 0.5 inch. And then go down here 1 inch and come over here. Okay. Now this should all be one object because I used polyline. Oh, looks like it created 3 objects. I guess because I escaped polyline so many times as I was drawing the shape, I didn't just do it as one continuous object. So that's why it's separate. But that's okay. Whenever in doubt, just use the join command and combine them all. So I typed in join, I hit enter, selected everything, hit enter, and now we have one object that we can indeed extrude. So we extrude by the depth, which is 1.25 inches. Then we have our shape. We can hop into conceptual. I've actually grown up quite fond of this conceptual view. I think that looks kind of nice. And then what we'll do is we will hop into our 3D Basics tab. And we want to rotate this before we do anything else. So it's in the right orientation before we cut anything away. So let's rotate. This thing's giving me a little trouble. It's a little slow today. Rotate 3D is what I typed in. Select the object, hit enter, select an axis of rotation. So I'll select the origin and another point along the x-axis, rotate it 90 degrees, and snap. I have my L shape, same as in the sketch. Now block number 11 also has this kind of triangle shape. Now I could have started with the whole thing and cut it away. And generally when we did freehand sketches, that's what we did, right? We started with a big block and we cut away. But sometimes it makes sense to draw a block and then draw extrusions from it, which I think does make sense here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw the prism that would encompass this triangle piece. So its height is going to be all the way up to the top of this shape. Its width is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. So that's going to be 6 units is 1.5 inches, or kind of like the rest of this piece here And the depth is going to go in by 2 units, so that's ½ an inch. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. Now, I don't have my mechanical ribbon available for me right now, so I'm just going to type in rectangle. I can type it into the command bar. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that I'm hovering over this section because I want to make sure I'm drawing on the correct plane. I'll start at this corner here, and then I'll draw it to be over here. So it's giving me 3 axes, so be careful because that z-axis, that's height. I want it to go negative 1.5 inches by 0.5. Oh, I accidentally drew it in the wrong direction. Let me try drawing that once again. The issue is my x and y are here, so I'm dealing with some negatives. So I got a little crossed up because I'm starting at this corner here, and I need to go in negative 1.5 along the x direction, and then I need to go in negative 0.5 along the y direction to draw my rectangle. Another option you could do instead of having to deal with that if those negatives are very confusing for you is you can draw some construction lines and kind of lay out this intrusion like I did with that first block. Then you don't really need to deal with negatives in your head. Uh-oh, I still have those construction lines from before. So let me go through and just delete all those guys because I don't need them anymore. Those were from when I did block number 1. Let's try that again. Okay, so construction line is what I'm typing in right now. Had a little trouble there. Construction line. It's just giving me so much trouble. Okay, select that. Draw a construction line. And then what I'll do is I'll offset it by 0.5 inches in this direction. And all I'll do is I'll draw a rectangle in that space. Looks like it's giving me a little bit of an issue with this corner, so let me go to the other side, see if that's any better. And if it's not, then I'll need to draw another construction line to create some intersections. Okay. Now that I've created that rectangle, I can go ahead and I can extrude it. Or if extrude is giving me an issue, I can also press pull it up, because remember, press pull will also create extrusions, not just intrusions. And now I've done pretty well for myself. I just need to make a cutout here of this triangular shape. So let me take a look at it. It looks like it goes from the bottom to the top, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 units in. So 1 inch in. And then it's actually 1 inch up. So it's actually going to be so let me draw some lines here. Actually, let me use polyline. That doesn't make a difference when you're using press pull, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to draw up all the way. I'm going to draw across 1 inch, and then I'm going to draw. Ooh, that line got messed up. Let's see if that first line is still there. Sometimes it helps to go into 2D wireframe to deal with this stuff. Okay. Try drawing lines again. So I'll draw a line all the way up across 1 inch and then down here. And if I did everything correctly, I should be able to intrude this section. So I'll hit press pull, select that bounded area, and drag all the way through. And when I do that, it should cut away. There we go. Block number 11 complete. We can go ahead and make our construction lines visible. Now, the one thing about press pull that's a little bit annoying and different from extrude is when you extrude, the original lines go away. But when you press pull, the object lines you used in order to, not the object lines, the lines you used in order to intrude remain. So what you can do is you can actually go through and delete them. What I like to do is I'll use the move command and I will select the whole object and kind of move it to a different spot and then just delete any lines that are left behind. Totally fine. It's also, okay to leave them unless I can tell you otherwise for a specific reason. But I like to get rid of them because they don't look great. So that's how you would do it. You would move it away and then you can get rid of the lines. You can move it back if you want. Doesn't really make a huge difference. The shape is done. The front, top, and right side are all in the right space. Okay, so that's it for today's lesson. For homework, you're going to create blocks 3 and 8 using these techniques, and I will see you guys on Monday.